Welcome. I'm your host KB, and I would like to introduce you to industry professionals and people who successfully made their path to the video game industry. I hope that you will enjoy the podcast and get useful tips that will bring you closer to achieving your dreams. Now, let's get right into the podcast. There's another episode of, so it was the Game Div.TV podcast, but now we're turning the name into the Game Tea Time. Same concept though. And we got Liz back. She was on the Game Div.TV podcast when I was doing a recording with Zoe. And she used to work at Sucker Punch and worked on Ghost Tsushima. But now, how about you let the fans know what you're up to and what's going on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, now I'm at Warner at Monolith, and I'm getting to work on the Wonder Woman game. So I'm super stoked about that.
That's wild because I didn't put that together at first because I thought you were just posting it. I was like, oh, that's cool, like Wonder Woman. Then I was like, wait a minute, you're working on that? I was like, when did this happen? So yeah, let's dive deep into what happened after our last conversations. Was it like more work at Sucker Punch, or did you leave Sucker Punch? Like, what was going on?
I'm trying to think of, we had just shipped Ghost, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think you were working in the multiplayer. That's what was going on.
Yes, yeah, Legends. And then you and I got to play a little bit of Legends together, which was so fun. So yeah, shipped Ghost, shipped Legends. That was amazing. And then went over to Warner, went over to Monolith.
Okay.
And then found out about what we were working on. Had to keep it under wraps, but we announced, and so now I get to say super proudly.
Yes.
And I'm so happy that it is Wonder Woman.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. Like, that's an amazing project. I can't wait to see what it's gonna look like later on. So we don't really get to ask this question a lot to people, but what was it like transitioning? Was it like, oh, now I'm done with Sucker Punch and I'm moving on to the next one? Or was it kind of a little bit like nerve-wracking? Or was it just the process of being in the game industry?
You know, it was weird because, I come from Ubisoft over to Sucker Punch. So switching companies is, par for the course. It's kind of like any job, really. I don't think it's particular. But what was weird was doing it during COVID.
Yeah.
So when I came to Monolith, everyone was already working from home. So
yeah, right. Isn't that weird? Like, everybody's knows each other and now they're working from home, but you're like, I don't know any of you guys, and now we're working from home.
And you're meeting people, and it's totally on Zoom, and you don't know who you don't know. And then even with my team, I met the writers and was interacting with them for several months. And then finally COVID kind of took a dip and we were all back. So we decided to get together and meet in person. And that was just kind of like, you're like, is it going to be weird?
Right. Yeah, you're a little nervous. You're like going on a first date.
It felt like a date almost. And then you get there and you're like, nah, I know these guys. They know me. It was just fine, but different. I've never been in a situation like that anymore, like so many other people. So,
and I feel like it's just kind of a thing that's part of the normal life now, like because it goes down and then it's back up with different variations. So what advice do you have for people going through that transition?
Oh, what a good question. What helps me? To just reach out and ping people. Actually, yeah, that would be my advice, because that is what helped me, is to just message people or whatever avenue of communication you have available to you. Use that, because you can't get up from your desk anymore and just go talk to someone. So you've got to just hit them on Messenger and have a Zoom call, and it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing, better than just sitting there alone.
Yeah, right. Alone, that doesn't help. Unless you have like an animal, then it's good. But
or kids. And there's children in the world as well.
I have a child, a toddler, yes. Sometimes she attends meetings.
Oh, really? He just comes out of nowhere and it's like, hey, what are you guys working on? And you're like, no.
Basically, yeah. And you can fight it, or you can just incorporate the child. So I choose to incorporate.
I'd say 2 years ago, that was kind of weird. People were kind of embarrassed. Now it's like, nobody cares.
They're the best part of the meeting, to be honest. When a kid interrupts the meeting, you're like, oh my God. Some entertainment, some fun.
Yeah. So When you left Sucker Punch, were you like trying to learn new skills to like better prepare you for the next job? Like, how did that all go?
Well, it's interesting because I had come from Ubisoft, and when I left, I was working on Watch Dogs Legion, which
No
is
way, really?
yeah, yeah.
I played a little bit of it. Were you working in the Assassin's Creed part?
No, well,
Oh, okay.
my first game was Black Flag.
Okay, yeah.
But that was really my only dealing with Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
after that.
I played a little bit of like that 20-minute mission they added where like they go to the Assassin's Creed Bureau in London. And then I was like, this is so cool. They're kind of connected because technically the villains of the Watchdogs are like Templars in a way because they're a big corporation that's trying to like take out the freedom. So I was like, what? So this is all related. That was cool to me. I don't know if you experienced like the little Assassin's
Yeah,
Creed in there, but
I wanted to try out that game as well because I found out it existed when I was moving to London. So like, oh, I'm moving to the city and the game takes place there, and it's a series that I like. So like, it felt right, but then my PC couldn't run it. So
no. But yeah, so what did you do in Watch Dogs Legion?
Well, so I mean, as you know, like it's a procedural game. Like that's
Yeah.
that's what it is, open world procedural. So then of course coming to Monolith and being the Shadow of War guys, this was a very good fit.
Mhm.
Because I have experience with that kind of storytelling, with some of the stuff they're exploring and looking to do. But of course, they have their own take on this. They have a whole system, the Nemesis system, built and supporting this storytelling, emergent storytelling. So that was really exciting for me. Really
I
exciting.
bet.
Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, to be able to be a part of that and to explore and develop with them. And so it was kind of in a way sort of coming back to my roots. I mean, obviously, Ghost is an open world game as well,
Yeah.
but it is not procedural like Legion, and it is not procedural like any of the Shadow games. So
Yeah.
that was cool. That was really cool.
That's cool. Procedural games are crazy because basically just can like keep going. Just things are being procedurally generated instead of like a set world. So did you find any like hardships with like writing or for that or working on that?
It definitely stretches your brain in totally different ways. Because the cool thing about Ghost was being able to, again, open world and wanting to provide players with opportunity and feedback on their choices. It's a lot more not crafted, but limited, I would say, just in what you can do and the type of feedback you can provide. Whereas this is the playground. this is wild. So you really do, anything is possible, frankly. And it's just about trying to figure out what all those possibilities are, and then from that, just kind of culling it down into something that's manageable and shippable.
Dang, that sounds difficult. It's basically saying you have infinite ideas, figure out what is good together, and then make it work. Damn. How do you manage all that? Do you like have specific ideas in your mind that like, okay, this is gonna, or maybe structure? You have structures that like this is how we're gonna structure it, and then what ideas would fit in the beginning and in the middle, and then have a good ending.
Well, exactly. So yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. Is just affecting a sense of progression and escalation for player experience when they can go anywhere and do anything they want. And not wanting the game to intercede as much as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. That's you have to think of all different kinds of ways that to have players feel and experience that, and think that or feel like they're making progress. But two, it's less a focus on sort of traditional storytelling and more a focus on character. And atmosphere and I would say perhaps the personality of people and things, rather than a whole. I know that sounds kind of woolly and
No, it's all good. Take it. Yeah, I like it coming out because
but
it's like the inner workings of a writer, and it's like you really there's no really to express it because it's like you feel it and you understand it, but like when somebody wants to like do the same thing as you, it's like, well, how do they do it? And you're like you're explaining it. It's like it's beautiful. I don't know. It's like some kind of like creative energy that's like hard to comprehend. But we're getting there. We're on it. I'm feeling it.
right on. Yeah. So I mean, it's highly creative. It's highly imaginative. It's just in a different kind of way. I was almost going to say less specific, but I don't even think that's true.
Hmm.
Um, it's exciting though. It's super exciting. And I think the great thing too is just having a system available that wants to support
Ooh,
these
I like
stories
that.
and is capable of supporting stories like this. That's what's super exciting because so often you're like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this and then offer the player these choices and then if they chose this,
100%.
then this. And yeah, it would, but so often there's not a system to
Yeah.
support that.
Unless you make it WoW, then maybe they have the system supporting that. But like we say, don't make WoW. But yeah, no, that is so true because you want to do everything, but you're like maybe this game can't fulfill that story. But maybe if we do something else later, I could fulfill that story. It's just you have to know, especially when you're working on a AAA game, like this has to work. Otherwise, the investors get upset and then fans get upset. It's like this is a big deal. So yeah, I don't even know how to where to start with that one. You're on a whole different level. You and your team of writers.
It's a spaghetti bowl, but a very exciting, tasty spaghetti bowl.
As long as it's tasty is all that matters. That's cool. So I also wanted to ask, since it's been like a while, how long? It's been a year now since Ghost of Tsushima's been out, maybe longer. It feels time is flying.
I know.
Right.
What year is it?
Right, 2022. What? But what are your thoughts on the game? Like, what are your thoughts on the work you did and how the game turned out and how everybody received it?
I'm still so proud of that game. I'm so happy with it. I'm so proud of it. I'm really happy for the team's continued success with Iki Island. That was
Oh,
amazing.
I love it.
The director's cut, which included Iki Island. It's just wonderful to see the continued quality and narrative push that they're still doing with that game and at Sucker Punch. It's inspiring. It's
Mm-hmm.
always inspiring, and I'm just so thankful I got to be a part of that. It's
Mm-hmm.
super special. Was a super special time in my life, and
Yeah, you'll
I
never forget
think
it.
of it fondly.
I'll never forget playing multiplayer with you. And you were like, I think I wrote too much. And I was like, what do you mean? No, it's perfect. That was the highlight of my life. So did you write Iki Island or anything about that DLC?
I was helping with it when I left, but to be honest, I don't know what made it in and
Yeah,
what
yeah, I got
didn't.
you.
Like who knows, right? At the time, I think some of the stuff that I did was slated to make it in, but as with any
Yeah,
production,
yeah. Who knows? I'm curious though, did you know like there was like any conversations about the inspirations for that DLC? Because a lot of like because Jin basically gets this I guess I would call it like a toxin, like a liquid that basically makes him start to like hallucinate in a way. And it kind of gave me vibes of Arkham City with the Joker. And so he's like slowly losing himself and he has to remember like who he is and like not to be afraid of. So I don't know if there was like talks were like, hey, what game's really cool? Like maybe we could do inspiration Arkham City because I thought it was done well. Like, I'm like, this DLC was top notch.
I couldn't speak to like if any other games influenced or inspired that, but what I absolutely know and was for sure the case on Ghost, a ton of research went into the world players experienced and that product. So it was absolutely based in quality research on the time period and subject matter. So that I'm confident about. But anything else, I really couldn't say. I don't
Yeah,
know.
gotcha. Yeah. And then is there any specific things you've taken away from Sucker Punch that you feel like will help you become or help you be a better writer in the years
Oh,
coming up?
totally. I honestly think about it a lot. I think too, even in our last meeting, I mentioned our lead, Ian Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so amazing. His focus was always on clarity and brevity and player motivation. And I still think about that. You always, write your script great, then go back, clean it up. And but even when I'm writing that first draft, I'm always thinking, how do I say this more simply? What can I cut out? And then too, especially with player motivation, it's just like, why would they do this?
Yeah.
Why? What do they gain? What changes them? And then too, even just little things like within the conversation, especially with missions, right? You're trying to identify to the player, here's the thing, this is what you must do, this is why it is fun. And so it's easy to take two characters and have one, identify, and then have the other one just basically be like, and tell me more, and then tell me why, and Ian was always like, don't do that,
Oh yeah, I was about to say, yeah,
no one talks like that.
It's just narrative dumping.
It's a way to communicate directions and intention and goals, but it is not a natural way to talk, and it's certainly not a good way to tell a story. So I'm always thinking of that too, and I can absolutely thank Ian for that.
That's beautiful. And so, like, okay, so when you're writing, how do you prevent yourself from doing that? Like, do you just dump it first and then try to like take out the pieces and say, how can I make this where it's explaining, not even explaining, but like detailed more than it is just dumping and explaining?
I do, because the first thing is I want to make sure the objective is clear, so that above all, yes, it is a game and there's something to go do. so
like, how can I make that compelling?
That needs to be clear. Yeah, you can't frustrate a player. They need to be very clear. So first, yes, technically make sure it's very clear what you want the player to go do, and then then go in and think about it from a human perspective. All right, if this was really happening, how would it go down? How would people really talk to each other? And then thinking about each character. So of course the player character, but then these NPCs that are with them, if I was really with someone else, they wouldn't just say, tell me more. They would have their own opinion. They would have their own, they might argue, they might totally agree. They would just, they would be their own person with their own thoughts and their own objectives. So trying to infuse that for a good story is the process for me.
And so when you left Sucker Punch, did you write anything on your own time to like keep your writing fresh, or just to play around?
Oh man, KB, I've really been thinking about that a lot lately. I didn't. And I haven't, and it's, to be totally honest, it's been years since I wrote something totally for myself and private. And I've been thinking recently how important that is. Just for your own creativity, to keep yourself inspired, but then too to push games, to push your own work. Like, within work, of course, there are all these restrictions and boundaries and objectives you're working with, and then when it's your own stuff, there's nothing. There's no work. Right.
It must be easy to get very frustrated when you have this idea inside you. Of course, if you don't have any idea coming up or anything you really need to write, then it's probably easier. But if you feel that there's something you need to put out, then it must be quite hard to not be doing that.
Exactly. And then to stay connected to yourself and what's important to you and what you're passionate about and what drives you in terms of creativity. So yeah, funny you bring that up, KB, but super important.
I was just curious because I want to know, like, what is it like to be writing outside of the work, and if you're continually improving. But I think it's good actually in a way for people to hear that, because it's like you don't have to constantly be like, what if you get like stressed out and you're like, that was hard work, now I want to relax. It's like, that's fine, take your time off and then go apply to a new job and go work, and you go to write again. And then maybe you didn't need to write because you've already learned the skills. Like, because I think there's this idea is I constantly keep doing stuff nonstop 24/7. It's like, but where's my life?
Exactly.
So no, I think it's fine.
100%. And there are times and places for things and chapters in your life. And exactly.
Like now you're doing boxing, right? Any free time?
Yeah, I box with my sister. I've also been running a lot, lifting weights. That's good too.
Yeah.
That feeds the creativity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, that makes me even more curious now. So, like, is there anything you feel like has built your creativity more that you wouldn't think would? Like, for instance, boxing, and like, are there any examples maybe where you've seen it? Like, wow, I got that idea from boxing. I would have never even thought of that before.
Well, to be honest, it's the long distance running.
Really?
One, because when you go running for several hours, you can think
Several
about
hours?
anything you want
Oh my
for as
god.
long as you want. If you have a problem, go for a long run, and then just frickin' go over that problem in your head as much as you want, because you know what? Eventually, it's gonna go away.
Oh, true.
It is such therapy for that. You can, where any problem you have, go for a run and you will work through it. And
Actually, that's so good because not only are you being productive, like working out and exercising, but then you also getting that problem solved. Like you could just sleep in your bed and think about it, but then like, no, it's better to just go on that run. That way you
it's
feel good
definitely,
afterwards. Yeah.
yeah, but when you're physically moving forward, that does something to your brain, and it just allows you to also go forward through whatever difficulty you're working on.
Yeah, you're kind of taking your mind off, and at the same time, just the ideas just pop. Like
Yeah,
from the
and you
programming side as well. Like a lot of things I just solved. Like you're taking a shower and then realize, oh, I spent 8 hours trying to do this. I could just have done this for 10 minutes.
yeah, exactly. You work through it, and then you kind of like exhaust the obsessiveness,
Mhm.
like,
Just let
so
that
that's,
go. What are they saying? That
but
Buddha.
then the
Let it
focus on
go.
pacing as well. Like, and I've actually been thinking of this in terms of game production. If you want to go out and hit a bunch of miles, you can't go hard for that entire time. You simply
Oh
cannot,
my
especially if
goodness.
you want it to
Beautiful.
do well. You have to go slow, especially in the beginning, and then work up. And you could even have dips, dips of pushing and then dips of recovery. But if you want to accomplish something big, you cannot go 100% all the time. And I definitely think about that in terms of game production.
That was beautiful. I needed that. That it's so true. Because, like, for instance, let's say you want to do a hobby or like learn a language. You could go hard 12 hours every day for like a month and then burn yourself out, or do 10 minutes every day for like 3 years. You're definitely gonna keep that up. And you'll be set in 3 years, you'll probably be able to speak because you go slow and steady. And some days you study more, some days you study less. But wow, you blow my mind.
It's so true, and then tied to that is this idea that, if you go slow, you're not going to get faster. Like if I go out and I force myself to run slower, somehow that means I'll never get faster. And the crazy thing is, no, you will get faster. That's what it takes. It takes this buildup of consistency, and control that will allow you to
Wow.
go faster. And again, it's like game dev, right? You're like, no, consistency, control, that's what's going to allow us to kill it. But it's scary. It's scary, right? And people are like, trust the process. But it's over years. But it's so true. I've experienced it in my own body and in my own work life, and yeah, they're really
Trust the
tied
process.
together, that's for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do also because a lot of us are gamers, right? So what happens is gamers don't really understand moderation.
It's
So you
true.
need to go all in. You need to finish the game the night after it releases and things like that. And then you get burnt out. Like it's very hard to do something for an hour a day. It's much easier to just do it once for 8 hours and
Be done
never
with
look
it.
at it again. Yeah.
Right.
I
And
can relate
that
to
that
that.
absolutely has a place too, but yeah, I like what you're saying, because too, it's your passion, right, that carries you through. And knowing when to rest, like sure, you're able to do that 8 hour sprint of completing that game, but then you rest and you wait for the next one that's worth it. And then you go hard again.
Yeah, true. You're right.
Yeah, and even the taking care of your body as well. Like people tend to underestimate how important it is to be healthy. You even see it pro gamers, like they have gyms and like the team complexes and things like that, because you don't necessarily need to be super fit and be strong, but you need to exercise in order to have your mind be ready to be sharp, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that 100%. And it's exactly what you say. It's health. It's not a look. It's not, anything like that. It's health, bottom line.
It's very important because if you're not getting to sleep and you can't like really work on the projects you want to do because you'll be tired or your ideas aren't going to flow and you get frustrated easier because you're tired. Like everything just comes together. Just be healthy, eat a little, eat a little healthy foods, stretch, still little, doesn't have to be extreme too. You don't have to be like a bodybuilder, but like take a few walks.
Every little bit helps. It's money in the bank. Like, every healthy choice, like you're only going to reap good from that. Nothing,
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned sleep as well. Like the first question my nutritionist asked me was, how much do you sleep? At what time? Do you use your phone in bed?
Right.
Because if it impacts how your body intakes calories, can you imagine how much it impacts your mind and so on, right?
Oh yes, I mean sleeping 3 a.m. and waking up at 8 isn't always good.
Yeah, if you're sleeping at 3, it's at least sleep 8 hours. Well,
yeah,
7.
I'm trying. Got lots to do, but yeah, no, it does matter in the end. It's just like I guess it's like you have to decide. Like you have to have like a structure, be like discipline, right? Like this is when I'm going to sleep. This is when I'm waking up, and like no one else can stop me from that. But life happens.
Like it's true. Life happens. It's okay. But I agree with you. Yeah, you have to be real clear on your priorities and then just like commit.
Yeah. Commit, go all in.
It's true. All in.
I'm curious, did you have any other lessons you learned from boxing though? Is there any like, gotta like evade and attack?
Oh man. I just think, honestly, it's the discipline and the consistency. And it's so, and to be honest, I hate the phrase trust the process because it is so.
I can tell you there's a little like tension with that word, that statement.
I know. Well, why do I hate it? It's just annoying. And kind of, it sounds like nothing. I don't know, but whatever, it's true. It's just like I don't have to like going to boxing. I don't even have to want to be there. But all I have to do is go there and show up and do the thing, and I'm going to benefit from it.
100%.
I can even have a shitty attitude, and it's better if I don't. But if I do, that's okay, because as long as I just do the thing, I'm going to benefit from it.
So what should we call that instead of trusting the process? Showing up. Just show up.
Show up. Yeah.
Just show. But it is so true. You show up, like at least you're in the room, at least you're doing that activity. Whereas like somebody might not be like, hey, I want to learn programming, and you show up and you're like, God, I suck, and you get nothing done. But at least you showed up, and at least you found out what you're not good at, and at least you learned maybe something new. Like even for writing, like, oh, I suck at writing, but at least you showed up. At least we can check your writing and see what you can improve on. Like, right. I don't know. It's just that's the most important part, showing up. Because at least
it really is.
Made an effort.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about sports. Actually, I know exactly how you feel. When I was younger, I used to do some sports I didn't want to do. I'm like, gosh, I don't want to go. But then you show up and you get a little bit better, and then you actually kind of have some fun. And you're like, oh, actually, I really wanted to do that, but not originally. I wanted to stay home and play my 12-hour game. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love boxing. I wish I did more of it. I only did like one kickboxing challenge, and I do it like on my own because I took jiu-jitsu, so we did mostly that. But yeah, you learn so much from that. And especially with jiu-jitsu, you learn to like not go all out and use your energy and to wait and then use the energy of the opponent against them. So I guess it's kind of like, I don't know how we did it for game dev. Like, I guess instead of trying to go all in, you use the energy that you get sometimes for that motivation to go hard. But then if you don't have it, you use that motivation to maybe rethink your process. Maybe I could be doing better so I could enjoy it. Like evading. I don't know. I'm just thinking of these on the fly. But
No,
yeah.
I'm right there with you, and I totally agree. Exactly.
Mhm.
They're so related, honestly, game dev and really kind of any physical activity,
Mhm.
any kind of betterment of in development, I would that's it. They're both development, aren't they? You're both in both cases, you're creating something, you're trying to grow something. So yeah, it's absolutely related. But I also like to, from you're saying about boxing, just being strong. Fucking love that. Makes you feel so good.
I love the one photo you have. You had like the arms up, and it was just like, yeah.
I like it, especially for women. I mean, for anyone, absolutely, but especially as a woman, like it feels good to be strong. Like no, I got that.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll defend
I can
myself.
lift that.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
that's awesome.
It's important to feel nice in your own body, like to be able to, not because someone tells you to, but because you actually feel that.
Right, because you actually feel that. And like we've all been saying, just coming from a sense of I'm just out there giving it, and doing my utmost. So however you end up looking at it kind of doesn't matter anymore because you're doing your best. So whatever. That's the real feeling. Yeah.
Like Tony Horton says, do your best and forget the rest. It's all that matters.
Here we go. That's it, KB. That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah. Not trust the process. Do your best. Forget the rest.
Yes. I love that one. And just show up. So how do you prepare yourself for writing for a whole new game? Is it like something mentally where you kind of have to be like, all right, new studio, new people, new game. How do I like get from the old thoughts to this new game?
It is a transition for sure.
Mhm.
Always research like
Mhm.
whatever the project is, dive into the books, dive into the content.
Oh, so this must have been exciting. You must have dove into a lot of old like comic books, movies, and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, heck yeah! When you're like your job is like, oh, go read all these comic books. Oh, okay, amazing. Yes, please. Yeah, no, that's been fantastic and so entertaining. Oh my goodness. So yeah, research for sure, but then you're right. Then there's this added element of like, okay, well, we did it. I did it like that over here, but it's different. It's different now.
Mhm.
So then like talking to people and a lot of listening, frankly, and asking questions. Like and not being afraid to ask questions and yeah.
That's a big one. Not afraid to ask questions because that could be daunting. Like, hey, what am I supposed to be doing? What's going on?
I know, especially, the longer you go on, you might, sometimes I get this feeling of like, I should know. I've been doing this almost 10 years, like, but
Oh,
very
it's like
quickly,
imposter syndrome
yeah,
a little
well, I
bit.
don't, so I'm gonna ask.
Yeah. Or maybe you just forgot, or it never came up in the last studio. So now it's like, oh, it's back, and I just didn't see it for a while.
Right. Or maybe
You know.
they do it differently.
Mm,
So, yeah, just basically getting on board.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
it's like a Bruce Lee quote where it's like the water, where like whatever water or liquid it goes into, if it goes into a cup, becomes a cup. If it goes in a teapot, like you have to kind of like morph yourself in each studio. So you kind of have to keep an open mind and be open to new ideas and to be
Right.
flexible to actually change.
Yeah. It's important not to assume things, right? Because you know what they say happens when you assume.
Oh, what do they say?
We can ask that of you and me. Ah! Oh, I love it. It's really true though. Every time I've assumed, it's always gone bad. It's like 9 out of 10. One time I'm like, okay, cool, we made it through, but not like usually it's like, why did you assume? I'm like, well, because I assumed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. You're right. Yep. Yeah, it's always better to just ask your question.
Yeah. And also like in your experience, has it been good? Like most people don't say like you should know that. They say, oh, here you go.
Oh, exactly. I've never had anyone
Yeah.
get angry at me or be disappointed or irritated. People are always so happy to be able to explain to you
Yeah.
and share.
Yeah. I don't think anyone who would like judge you for asking a question would last long in any sort of organization.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's true. And that's what's so special about game dev. It's the people in it, and just highly creative, compassionate people. And they're really eager to share their knowledge and to help you learn and to be collaborative. So
It's honestly a beautiful space. People creating amazing entertainment that like can keep people playing for hours. Like you think about a movie, it takes a lot of work, but it's like 2 hours of entertainment. A game could do 400 hours, depending on what game it is, of just nonstop
Days.
enjoyment and less. Yeah. Less from
Thousands of days.
Yeah.
Depending on usually MMOs.
Yeah. And it's just beautiful. Like that takes a lot of work. So you got a lot of people in the industry like helping each other out. And they're also passionate about their own ideas and they want to put their like ideas in the game and that gets spread around. And I don't know, it's just I love it. I love games, I love the industry. I love how everybody's so happy to share.
Yeah. Always, a lot of what makes the news is, the nasty stuff. But,
which is unfortunate. It's like
I know.
We need like two different news. One for like the reality stuff, sure, and some of the bad. But then like we need another news channel, just like strictly all the positive stuff. Like you just need to spread all the good because a lot of good things are happening. But everybody's like, oh, like I even had a friend who's like talking about this is even game related, but like more like space. And they're like, oh, like it sucks. Like we used to want to go to the moon and now we're not doing it. And I was like, okay, first of all, they don't say it on the news a lot, except the couple of SpaceX launches. But like, they have the technology, they have people plans, like doing things. They have different companies. Like, we're doing a lot of cool things with space. It's never done before. It's just you don't know about it because it's not. Either nobody wants to know, or it's just not interesting for the big news outlets to let you know. But there are cool stuff happening. So like, I feel like there's a lot of things in games too, where like nobody knows about some indie games because nobody wants to tell anyone. But I'm like, there's so much cool stuff out there. You just got to look.
Cool indie games.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
From my point of view, actually, so what happens is the world is so good today. There's so much good going on that to sell like newspapers or ads to get people to click on your links, you need to milk a bad story forever. It's like, why don't we go to space anymore nowadays? Because, well, it's risky. People were dying. So like we took a step back. Now that we have companies like doing everything in a secure way instead of throwing people and letting them die.
Yeah, that's wild. It's so yeah, we gotta spread more positivity in the game industry, spread good news. Everyone listening, spread good news every day or every other day. Yeah, spread love and happiness.
More love,
especially for developers. It's insane. Like I follow what's it, Vixit? It's dang, her name just escaped me. She is this artist, not Lauren. This is what happens when you interview too many people. You get names mixed up. I got this. It's not. What's her name?
Please, I can barely remember names of people I met in person.
Here we go.
It's true, especially nowadays, right?
Oh, she doesn't even have a real name. Maybe see that's another thing too. I remember people's like avatar name, and then I don't remember their actual. Okay, well this is. Oh, I think it's I have it saved here. Caitlin. I think it's Caitlin. But so she was mentioning how like people are attacking her, like, hey, like how dare you do this bad thing for God of War and like blah blah. I'm like, I just worked on like the props. Like I didn't make this whole huge thing that you see. Like don't attack just me. Like, I don't like how people do that. They attack certain developers. I'm like, you do realize that they're one person out of hundreds who work on this huge game, and they probably didn't have to say so for why they had to make that art. They just following what the game director or game designer did. So it's like, I don't know, that needs to stop too. People don't understand that making games is hard. It's not easy at all. And to say like, oh, why'd you do it that way? It's like, no, they put hours into that, and that's just the way it was designed to be made. And yeah, we gotta stop.
There's a lot of money involved as well. Like
yeah,
people don't realize that it's not a charity. It's not something that like you have investors that actually need the product to come out at a certain date. Like people were talking about New World, like, oh yeah, it came out, it should have come out later to be ready, but at the same time they invested millions of dollars to make that game, and it was supposed to be ready like a year earlier. So was already delayed, and then what you do it,
it's complicated.
It
But yeah,
is.
so we can start by spreading more positivity. That's
Right.
how
To circle back. Yeah, that's positive.
yeah. So I was wondering if you have any, let's say, tricks or tips or any type of like habits you do to keep you on your toes when you're like transitioning to that new job. So that way when you go into, or like not even transition, before that interview, like so that way you're fresh for all the questions they ask you.
Oh man. Well, I definitely make sure I do get, going back to sleep, that I get good sleep. And then as I've gotten older, I've just kind of settled into who I am and just kind of accepted that I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth at some point. And that's okay because I do that. So that they know that about me is okay because that's what they're going to get. So, I'm just kind of becoming aware of your I don't necessarily want to say flaws, but let's use that term for the sake of brevity. Now that I've rambled through that, to just kind of be aware of that and then embrace it and then just kind of have fun with it in tandem with all the great things that there are about you. The thing, everyone knows. You know what people like about you. You know what sells. You got that. You also know what can kind of like, not be so great. But that's part of you too. And then to just kind of accept that and be aware and share that is I think really important because the people who then say yes to you are saying yes to all of you. And
Ooh, I
you're
like
going
that.
to do, and they're bringing you into an environment that you're going to do well in because they're totally aware of the whole package. Whereas if you're kind of trying to fit yourself into a box or this or that, even if you think it's what you really want, let's say they accept you and then you get there and then you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, no, it's true. Because you try to
Yeah.
sell yourself on what you think like they are and not really who you are. Then you'll go into it not being passionate about the work. And I feel like part of like what makes your work really good is you're super passionate. Like before you're just excited, like you're excited to work on it. So you're excited to research, you're excited to write. And if you're not like that, then I just don't think there's that spark to make the writing work. Or it won't work well working with a team. Like
Yeah, you said it, the team, right? So if you're a jazz person and then you don't always say the right thing, but whatever, you love it, then the people who are going to respond to that are of that kind. And that's where you're going to do well. Whereas the people who don't, well, they're not really your kind anyway. And the collaboration would be probably very difficult. And that's not to say, I'm advocating for like just the same personality type in all studios. It's so important to have different personalities, but yeah, just as long as you're honest with yourself and then your company, then they'll be honest with you, I think. So it'll be a good
I like
fit.
them. Beautiful. I had a great question. Well, dang it. It wasn't. Oh, so when it comes to how to do what you just said, oh no, I lost it again. All right, I'll think of something. Will come back to me and it'll work out. But so for studios like Monolith, do you have any advice for anybody trying to go work for like studios like that? Like, is it the same as you said with Sucker Punch, or is it a little different since it's a different studio?
Number one tip for any studio you want to go work at, play their games. Play their games, be able to speak to their games, know what they're up to. That's huge. If you show up and you haven't played the game, like,
Yeah, they're like, what are you doing?
Right, but you got to know what you're getting into, what they're offering. Again, what they're offering, what you're offering, that it's going to be a good fit. So one, definitely whatever studio you want, know their games, play their games, and then two, know what excites you.
Oh, and I actually remember what I was going to ask you earlier. I was like, so has there been any opportunities where you knew you were very self-aware and then you had a job opportunity, but you were like, no, this doesn't fit me, so you turned it down?
Yes. Yes, I did have an opportunity like that, and it was very exciting. It was an IP that I've admired for a very long time, and it would have been an honor. I would have been working with people that I love and have worked with before. It was a wonderful opportunity, but I just said no for personal reasons. You know, I mentioned my little daughter. I have a toddler. Just at my time in my life to accept that it wouldn't have been good on a personal level for my goals as a parent and just as a person. So I had to say no, and I don't regret it at all. But like, oh,
No, you're like,
it wasn't easy.
yeah, I bet not.
It wasn't easy.
I bet that took like a bunch of days of contemplating, maybe weeks, and just like, so how did you like come to grips with like that is the right answer? Like you just went on like a long run and was just like, this is it, or you felt right in your heart? Like if somebody was in the same shoes, what would you tell them?
Often, you know, part of it was a scenario I've experienced before. So even though I wanted it so badly, you know, I've been in a situation where I had said yes before. So I knew it wouldn't be good. And then, you know, your mind does all the gymnastics. You're like, yeah, but what if I do this? And then what if this could happen? And then it could probably be fine. Nope.
Wow.
Like you said, you know in your heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know if it's gonna work or not. And it can be so hard to say no. But I also kind of believe like you can have that opportunity again. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, I
Like,
feel
if
like you already
something-
have twice.
Yeah.
So
If something's meant to be, like it'll happen. It'll
Mhm.
happen for you. And I think like choosing, though you get those not second chances, but those opportunities again when you make the right choice.
Ooh.
Yeah,
like
I
it.
agree. I think people are afraid of turning down things that don't fit them because they think, oh, it's work for X company, it's going to be amazing. But what if that's not a good fit for you, or you're not mentally or even physically, or your social life, or you need to move to a different country? Sometimes that doesn't fit. And then you take that just because you feel like you have to.
Right. You're afraid. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
afraid you'll lose the chance. Yeah.
But
So
I mean, some things don't come twice, but job opportunities, if you invest in your career, you're actually, doing the right thing, they will come twice. Maybe not the same one, but same level.
I really agree. I really do. I think that's super wise. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like kind of like a fear of it's the lack of abundance. So like you should welcome abundance that like there is always going to be another opportunity. Doesn't fit for me
It's
now.
FOMO.
Yeah. But then there's gonna be one out there that's gonna be even better. And if I said actually yes to this, I would have missed that other opportunity. But like you did say that like you had an experience before where it didn't feel right. Do you think it's possible to like just listening to this podcast realize like, hey, this situation doesn't feel right, let me not do it because Liz said so? Or do you actually have to go through it for you to come up with that conclusion?
No, I think that's where that's where empathy comes into play and is so important, is being able to not have had the experience yourself, but to really put yourself in someone else's shoes, feel what they feel, and then take that on as your own experience. So yeah, I think I'm really on empathy right now because I'm working on that with my toddler. That like,
Yeah, I love that.
like
No, empathy is very
hitting,
important.
for example. Like you don't need to get hit to be able to put yourself in someone else's
That is
shoes
true. You're right.
and know that that's horrible. Don't hit. That's hurtful.
Yeah.
Nothing good
Probably
comes
like,
out of that unless
no.
you're boxing.
Yeah.
And everyone is consenting. But so that's the importance of empathy. And I think it allows you a greater life experience and wisdom and decision making capability without having to like the drudgery of needing to experience it yourself. This is the joy of being human, I think.
I love that. That's why I love Life is Strange True Colors. That game, the power she has is she can literally like visually see the emotion. She has this empathy of like times 1,000. And it's cool because then you can relate to people better and help solve their problems. And all it takes is just to feel what they're feeling, put yourself in their shoes.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm curious.
And even if just for selfish reasons, like you get to learn from their mistakes at least,
It's true. Yeah, it doesn't always. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. People often talk about empathy as if it's a moral good. It is not necessarily. It is not necessarily good.
Thought of it
It
like
is
that.
valuable.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, like when it comes to writing, how do you effectively write good stories that will help, cultivate empathy or at least make them feel empathy? Because sometimes people play a game like I didn't feel anything, and others would be like, that game hit me and it feels. Like, is that something you think about, or is that just totally just based on what you write?
No, all the time. I mean, for me, this is super personal. Everyone has their own way and avenue of access, but any character I write, I really do try to sink in and be that person. And then so, in whatever story it's in or interaction, really trying to embody these different characters. I just feel like that translates. And again, I know I'm getting a little woolly, a little like kind of like, but I just really feel like if you are feeling, it's kind of like cooking, when people say made with love, and you can taste the love. Well, it's like that with writing. I feel like if you really put yourself in it, and you are being genuine to the emotions you're talking about and to the situations you're talking about, that's going to come through. And that's what lasts so much. Craft is paramount for sure, that's amazing. But to me, like the soul of writing is being empathetic and genuine experience and emotion, which comes through on the page or in the game or the movie, whatever. That's the magic of it, really, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a question on the other side though. So you're thinking about writing from your heart and like an idea or a story that you really want to write. But how do you move on from an idea that maybe you've been in love for ages, right? And it's just not working.
Right. Oh man. I think you let it bubble. You just recognize that it's going to take time. That's the marathon. That's not your sprint. It's a marathon one. And it needs to sit, and it just needs more time. But I kind of feel like I hear what you're getting at too, Ricardo, especially in this business. Writing is a job. So, you cannot always just sit and wait for the muse to strike or to make sure you're really feeling it. Because shit has to get done, and it is your job, and you are paid to do that. So let's go. And that's where the craft comes in. It's kind of like what, where we're talking about with the discipline and exercise, right? Like you're not always going to feel motivated and super passionate to go box for an hour, but you're going to go do it. And the quality will vary. It will. But the more you do it, the more your quality bar, just your quality base, let's say, just naturally gets higher. So it's just a consistency of like, well, do it anyway.
That's beautiful. That's the best way to wrap up this conversation. Just do it anyway. No, this has been so much fun. I'm so happy we got you back on to talk about After Sucker Punch, how you thought about it, and just like what you've been up to. And this has been amazing. I learned a lot, actually. I learned more than I think I did the first time. It's insane, especially the quality level and the fact that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It just eases, like, I guess the stress. Like, I gotta do everything. It's like, no, you don't.
Right.
And it's
it
like,
has to be perfect. And it's
yeah.
like, no, doesn't, not until recording.
Right. Yeah, then oh no. But no, yeah, this has been amazing. I'm so glad you came back on, Liz.
Oh, thank you so much, KB. It's such a pleasure. It's so good to meet you, Ricardo.
Hey, Ricardo's the best. He's been
That's
with me
great.
since the beginning. But we know it's not over yet. I'm wondering if you have another question for the community. Like another like any type of question. My bad. Challenge. You have any challenge for the community that they could do after this podcast to keep them on their toes, or maybe to feel empathy or anything?
Oh, well, I think let's go back to what we were talking about in the very beginning. Let's all go write something for ourselves.
Ooh.
Just whatever you feel passionate about,
Mhm.
the thing you wanted to write, just like, and who cares? Who cares how much to just write it, even if it's just a sentence. I like that.
I love that
It's a
challenge.
challenge for myself as
Yes.
well.
Let's all go do it.
Yeah, let's all go do it.
Yes. Even if you don't want to, just show up.
Yeah, show up. Let's all show up.
Awesome. But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. And I just want to hand the mic to you to end it off, to say any last minute things you want to say, shout outs, thank yous. And thanks for coming on, Liz.
Oh, well, just huge thank you. Huge thank you to you, KB, Ricardo. And it's always such a pleasure to be with you guys. And just my extended love to Sucker Punch and now Monolith. I'm happy to where I got to come from and for where I am.